we are still so caught up with trying to be perfect, right? We are attempting to still look a certain way and be a certain way. And I think that a really big reason why we are doing that is because there's not enough brave people around just being themselves. What I mean is that to be able to see all sides, to be able to see light and shade, right?
Have you ever seen someone living an amazing life and thought to yourself, how'd they get so lucky? If you are not currently living a life that's on your terms, a life by your design, then this podcast series is for you. This is the More Confidence with Luna Guy podcast, and in this special season, I'm going to be interviewing people who are living a life by design, living a life on their terms. And I'm going to find out once and for all if it is just luck or there's something more going on. Let's dive in.
So I'm sitting out here having a cup of tea, right? And I have a beautiful, darling friend who lives in Melbourne, and I haven't lived there for 5 years. Hang on, tea. And I was just talking, and I was asking her, I recently asked you at the internet, and I was like, what are some women that you look up to? And lots of beautiful people put stuff and thank you for all you are. And I was talking to my friend about it, and she was giving me some of her people, and she's like, you know what I find really just rough is that we're just in a world, particularly on the internet, particularly online, but also just face to face, where we are so unwilling to be ourselves. We are still so caught up with trying to be perfect, right? To try to kind of get an image of perfection. We are attempting to still look a certain way and be a certain way, and I think that a really big reason for that, a really big reason why we are doing that is because there's not enough brave people around just being themselves. And I'm not talking be yourself means being brutally honest and tearing other people down, because I don't think that that's the truth. What I mean is that to be able to see all sides, to be able to see light and shade, right? Because my farts stink. If anybody who knows me personally, like shout out to my mum and but like I tend to get quite gassy and it's really quite gross, to be frank. And why am I here sharing that on a public platform? Because I just think there can just be this perception that when we see people doing cool shit, particularly on the internet, we have this perception that they aren't as complex as we are. We have this idea that they're not fraught with the same kind of limits and self-doubt and destruction as ourselves. Like you might watch me on the internet, right? And maybe you follow me and thank you, I love you being here. Maybe you read my book, which I'm about to do, by the way. I know that sounds funny. I've read my book lots of times in the editing processing. But I was like, there's some lessons in there, because that book came through me, it was channeled. I think there's some lessons for me to check out. Anyway, I digress. We spend this time thinking that we are meant to be perfect, that we're meant to have all our shit together, that everybody's got it all sorted out. And so we have this persona that when you look at me, someone like me, right, you might see that I've launched a book, or I'm not even going to talk about stuff. If you follow me, you know, right? Hey Vicky, nice to have you here. Good morning. We're talking about perfectionism because, and this idea of inauthenticity that we see on the internet a lot. Like people only being vulnerable for the sake of being able, like, quote, vulnerable post so that people, I don't necessarily know why, attention or whatever. I just wish that we could just show our insecurities a bit more. Actually, a lot more. Like, imagine if we can just be like, hey, I'm killing it in XYZ areas of my life, and I've spent a week in bed. Because that's what happened. That's what happened in my life, right? So a couple months ago, I launched my second book, rock on, bestseller, cool, whatever. And I'm not dismissing that. I'm celebrating in all of that, and it's excellent, and you've seen it all over social media. It's been cool, like loving that. And this week, I've spent the week in bed. And not because I've been particularly sick, but because, honestly, just down and out. Just going through some deep stuff, being in a hole. And that might surprise people to go, oh, she wrote a book about being happy, or she talks about authenticity, or confidence. But I just think that we need to have a real conversation about the fact that we are diverse, not just amongst one another, but we are diverse within ourselves. Right? We are diverse within ourselves. Two truths can exist and at the same time and still be true. Right? We are both infinite light and a human. right? We are flawed. We aren't great. Thank you, Vicky. I'm loving it too. I'm coming on for have a Saturday morning rant with me, having a cup of tea. And questions. Bring questions too, Vicky. If you've got any, if you want to talk about anything, let me know. And I'll just keep ranting. I want to live in a world. So why I do the work and why I started doing this work so many years ago is because I want to live in a world where I don't have to feel inadequate because what other people show is only their, quote, their good parts. If we're only showing the celebration, the highlight reel, even in not even online, but even in real life, like, how's it going? Oh, great. No, you know, when people say to me, how you been lately? I've been like I've been in a hole. I've been in a hole. Staying up till stupid o'clock in the morning, you know, like binging food, feeling awful, depressed, and me all the while knowing full well the skills and tools that I have and that I teach, that this is going to pass, and I'm learning the lessons from it, and I'm sitting with me and loving myself through the process. Hey, Carolyn, lovely to have you here. We can still do all of that. We can still sit ourselves and love ourselves and honour ourselves in the process of the shitstorm. Like, again, we are human. We're going to go through the shitstorm. And maybe your shitstorm has been going for a few days. Maybe it's going for a few years. Can we love and honour ourselves in that process without having to try to change it? And I think that if we just had more... You know, we live in a world of influencers, right? These influencing people who get in there and they go, what I eat in a day, or, you know, it's okay to have a cheat meal, or like, get your 7-figure coaching business. This is obviously the world that I live in, but like, get your 7-figure coaching business and you can have it all, and you can have the body, and you can have the great sex, and you can have it all. You just need to manifest right. And then I think that just leads us to feeling more lack, don't you? And I'm not to say that I'm going to shit on anybody else and not celebrate them. Rock on, man. If you have all of that, love it for you. But let's not pretend, because I think that there's pretending. I don't know about you, but I'm human. And Vicky, Carolyn, you're online now. Even if you're watching this as a recording, let me know. Do you know anybody in the world, in ever your experience, that you have known personally, that no matter some level of success in their life, they have had to go through challenge? Have they been going through challenge? Like, let me comment now, or give me a heart or whatever so I know you're here. It doesn't exist. This idea that everyone's got their shit together always, hey Jade, nice to have you here, is so false. Like, I want to see the realness, don't you? Don't you want to see the rawness? Don't you want to see people who are, like, not wallowing in their shit either, by the way? I think that it goes the other way. I've seen a lot of people, particularly in 2024, like, just getting so hung up in their negativity, right? We've got toxic positivity and we've got toxic negativity. The middle ground here, the middle way, the middle path is to be like, okay, here's how I usually teach it, and I'll teach it to you now. You've got a garden, right? You've got a beautiful garden. Actually, I'm not going to say beautiful. You've got a garden. Carolyn says, of course, so much pretense. Yeah. And pretense is pretending and pretentious. We're pretending as though we have got our worlds all put together at all times. And you know what I think that actually does? And I'm going to come back to what I teach in a moment. What I actually think that does for us is limit our capacity to growth. I think it stops us from being humble. It stops us from being a student. It stops us from learning. It stops us from growing. To think that we have to have it all figured out, therefore we don't ever ask for help, therefore we don't go seek counsel, be that through a coach, be that through friends, be that through lives, connection, whatever. If we're not willing to admit that we're imperfect, then we will never have the opportunity to grow. And not imperfect because we are lacking, but imperfect simply because we still have so much to learn and grow into. So if we're not willing to admit our insecurities and our flaws, we are not humbling ourselves enough in order to learn, right? So the way that I like to look at this is that if you think about it, I think this is great. Perspective is important. You can all see my background looks like a brick wall, right? Now, I could have come to you here live with this background, and it would be just as authentic and just as real, right? And it might be a bit showy. Look at where I am. You know, and I could do that. And I have, and I've made reels from here and whatever, but you know what? Actually, this is more comfy. This is where I'm actually sitting, you know? It's brick wall. It's ugly behind me, so to speak. Make sense? So can we be authentic about it? Rather than having to set the frame every time, can we just be real? The way that I encourage everybody to look at this, the way that I look at this, toxic negativity, toxic positivity. We all have a garden. We all have a big garden. And toxic positivity is walking into the garden and going, closing your eyes and closing your ears and saying, there are no weeds. No, everything's amazing. No, good vibes only, good plants only. There are no weeds. No, I'm in the Garden of Eden. Everything is abundant. There are no weeds. It's delusional. It's delusional, and it actually stops us from doing the work that's required. We're literally avoiding the shadow, the weeds. Toxic negativity. Let me know how this is landing, by the way. Leave me a comment, heart, whatever. That's toxic positivity. Toxic negativity is walking into the garden and freaking out. Oh my God, look at all these weeds. I'm never going to be able to there's just weeds everywhere. Why is this happening to me? Why are there weeds everywhere? And we go into victim mode. It's just weeds and it's just weeds and I can't do it. It's okay for us to feel those feelings, don't get me wrong. But if we're only looking at the weeds or we're completely ignoring the weeds, we're not in realism. It's not authentic. Authentic is walking into your garden and going, sheesh, it's overgrown. I've got some work to do. Like, that's humbleness, right? That's humility. Walking into our garden, which is us, our lives, and going, there are weeds. And you know what? Anybody gardener here? Anybody does gardening? Anybody who's ever done anything to do with the garden recognises that the weeds keep coming. Don't they? The weeds keep coming. You have to maintain the garden. If the garden is overgrown in the first place because it hasn't had any weeding done, then you're going to need to go in there and get rid of the weeds. You're going to have to clean the mess up, right? Before you can get to a place of maintenance. So let's look at our garden not as like, oh no, there are no weeds, love and light, everything's amazing, good vibes only. Or walking into our garden being like, oh my gosh, why is this happening to me? No, let's walk into our garden. Let's walk into our garden and go, right, first of all, I have a garden. Rock on. How good is this? And if you have a whole bunch of weeds in your life, your metaphorical garden right now, you know what? It tells me that there's enough rain and the soil is good enough for you to be able to create weeds. They're not the plants that you've wanted, right? But this is only, the reason why your garden is overgrown and full of weeds, which is your negative mind, is because of the fact that it hasn't been maintained. It hasn't been planted. You haven't planted intentionally what you want your garden to be. So walk into your garden and be intentional with it. How do you want your garden to be? How do you want your life to be? Set your intentions by planting the right seeds. And if there's bushes in there that are overgrown, that need to be cut back, cut them back. Maybe that's habits. Maybe that's certain people. Maybe that's certain traits. Maybe there are times in your garden where you're going to need to pull out entire trees and bushes because they're toxic, because they're not good for the environment, right? You're maybe going to have to do a little bit of culling. That's getting rid of some people in your life because you are the company you keep. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you are hanging out with people who are complaining all the time or ignoring their problems all the time, guess what? You're going to be a result of that. So we're going to need to clean up our garden. You hearing what I'm saying here? I'm loving what you're saying. Carolyn says, love this perspective. Yeah, I want to know more from you. If you're online, I would love hearing from you. So this garden that we have, we need to go in there, and we can also be really grateful. A, we have a garden. B, if it's overgrown, it means that there's flourishing there, it's alive, it's well. And C, we have hands, we have tools. And even if right now you're in a position where you're like, I don't have a lot of tools to fix my mind, fix, in inverted commas there, I don't have a lot of tools to help myself. The great thing about that is that you can get them. And for free. You can get them for free. Paying someone and working with someone who you trust and you admire and have got the results that you want is an excellent idea. I do it lots in my life. And it's very helpful because they get to help you to navigate the they help to guide you in the spots where you might get stuck otherwise. But we live in 2024. There's an abundance of knowledge and wisdom on the internet. Books after books after books after books after books. You can go to the freaking library and hire books. Not even hire. Like, you just need to be a resident of that local municipality. One of those words, right? You can just go get wisdom. You can. It's available to you. It's free. You don't need to go, like, find it out in someone else. You really actually don't. It's cool to work with other people. I get it. What I want you to, just to highlight here, is that if you don't have the tools currently to be able to tend to your garden, which is your mind, just want to bring that back. Your garden is your mind, it's your heart, it's your being. If you're ignoring your problems, it's toxic negativity. If you are denying your problems, it's toxic positivity. But if you are also dramatizing and catastrophizing your mind, right, it's toxic negativity. Negative and positive is simply just your experience of them. If you want to get happier, if you want to get more confident and be more authentic, surround yourself with people who are doing it online. Support them, right? Celebrate them. And if you want to, buy their stuff if it works for you and you can. But be more authentic yourself. Come to learn that. If you don't have the tools, just go get educated. I say just. Spend the time, the effort, the energy. Because something beautiful that came out yesterday. I know some people are like, cool, I'm out, but loving it. I'm on a roll. There's a beautiful, very long quote that I posted on my page yesterday from a man named David Foster Wallace. I'm not going to read out the whole thing to you, but effectively the premise of it is that us as humans are worshippers. We worship. It's not if we worship, it's what we worship. And the way that I like to make distinction here is, are you worshipping your negativity? Are you worshipping the weeds? Are you worshipping the poison in your life? Or are you worshipping gratitude? Are you worshipping consciousness? Are you worshipping, I like to call it God. Is it universe for you? Is that what you're worshipping? Are you living in gratitude? Not because everything is great, but because you have it. You have a garden. This is a tool, like a tool to be able to go, you know what? What am I worshipping? What am I paying attention to? There are two wolves that live inside each of us. One in the light and one in the dark. There is a wolf in the light and a wolf in the dark. And I want to hear from you here. If it's a competition, who wins? The one in the light or the one in the dark? And I asked this of a client the other day. And very reasonably and sensibly, she goes, well, I'd really like to think the one in the light. And I said, it's the one that you feed. The one that wins, the light or the dark, is the one that you feed. Just like in your garden. All the analogies coming together here, just in the garden. If you water your weeds, guess what? They're going to grow. If you keep focusing on what is crap, they're going to grow. But if you don't get rid of them, they're also going to grow, right? They're just going to be insidious. They're just going to take over. Our minds are designed to keep us safe, not to make us happy. That's why it gets into weeds. So when it comes to our garden, when it comes to these wolves, when it comes to true authenticity, recognize that you got work to do. Always. We always have work to do. There's always unraveling. There's always an unfolding of our conditioning and programming that has told us that we're a piece of crap. Our garden needs maintaining. If it's overgrown right now, what does Carolyn say here? Jade, all this talk about gardening is just making me feel guilty that my actual garden needs a lot of TLC that I keep putting off. And I love this. I want to witness you in the guilt of this for you, Jade, because the guilt of this is like, oh man, I really should be, right? And how often do we do that with our minds? Oh, I really should be over the negativity. When it comes to this kind of stuff, guilt, we want to honor the emotion. Like, honor the emotion. And Jade and everyone else here, just try this on for size. Have a play with it. Repeat after me. Hello, guilt. Hello, guilt. I know that you're here, and I know that you're showing me where I'm out of alignment with my values. Because that's what it really is. When you're feeling guilty, you're like, what you're actually saying is, I'm out of alignment. My actions are not in alignment with my values of who I believe myself to be. Let's get really honest about it, because we can get caught up in guilt. This is toxic negativity. Oh, I feel so guilty. I'm not saying you're doing that, Jade, by the way, but oh, I feel so guilty. And we can almost use guilt as a martyr. Oh, I feel guilty. If you say you feel guilty, then it abdicates you of the responsibility to do anything about it. That's the watering the weeds. But if we go, okay, well, what's really happening here is that I'm out of alignment. Now we can do something about that if we choose. Or we can go, you know what? I don't want to do the weeds. I don't want to. I don't give a shit about maintaining my garden. And the guilt that I have that's associated with it is aligned with who I think I should be or what I should do. Again, out of alignment with our authenticity. This is not getting us off the hook saying we never have to do any work. This is not about saying we don't have to go into the garden ever. But in fact, our own internal garden, if we are not tending to it, it will get overgrown. There's no two ways about that. So if our internal garden is overgrown, it's much easier to maintain a garden than it is to get it clean in the first place, right? Who's got kids here? My mum would also say, or like often say to me, like, why don't you just keep your room clean? It's so much easier to just keep it clean than it is to like have to clean it up when it's trashed. And back in the day I was like, but I like cleaning up when it's trashed and I like making the mess. That's okay too. You want to let your garden get all overgrown? Go for it, babes. And then when you feel motivated, go in there and get it done. Sweet. If you enjoy that, know yourself. This is what authenticity is. Just because it's Saturday morning and there's a whole bunch of people who are out there doing the gardening, you're having this perception that everybody else is out there living their good life. Something. It's just not true. We're diverse creatures. The authenticity that is true is that, like, we are fallible and we feel small. And, you know, I rock up to an open mic last night, and there's no way that anybody who saw me jump on stage just to, like, faff about would have thought that it's an insecurity of mine. But it is, and I talk about that. Because, you know, when I was a kid, my family would say to me whenever I'd sing, "Can you whistle?" Which was a passive-aggressive way to say, stop singing, you suck. And so I thought that I sucked at it. So I stopped doing it, even though I love it. So insecurity lies within me, and I'm a freaking confidence and authenticity coach. I can teach people how to love themselves, teach confidence. Anyway, my message for you here today. Oh, by the way, beautiful view. You see me in the pink. I haven't showered. I'm wearing my crop top. This is what I've got on. Like this. Like, let's just, like, have a bit of perspective here. I want to do that because I think it's just so easy for us to make assumptions that I can just frame it. That if I just framed it from here, hi everybody, let me talk about authenticity and how it's so important for us to be our most courageous self. Look, I know I'm taking the piss and it might sound a little bit judgmental. And you know what? Probably is, because I can be hypercritical. I can be judgmental. That's the thing, right? I'm not freaking perfect, and neither are you. And we must be aware. Jordan Peterson talks about this. I'm about to wrap up, by the way, but if you've got any questions, shoot them through. Please. Shoot them through if you've got any questions for me. I'll just hang about. Jordan Peterson talks about this. We must intimately get to know, he calls it the monster, I call it the darkness. We must intimately get to know our monster if we want to have any command over it. If we want to have any command over the darkness within inside of ourselves, the weeds, we need to understand it viscerally. If we don't understand it, if we do not have a good grasp and handle on it, then it will control us. Freud will say, Freud, no, it was Jung, until the unconscious become conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. Now, something just happened. My beautiful mama bear just arrived in her new car. Good morning, mama.
Good morning, my darling. How are you?
You're live on Facebook.
Oh, am I really? Hi.
Because I'm talking to people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Come on.
You're still in your pajamas.
Yep, I haven't showered and my house is trashed.
All right, okay.
It is. I got shit everywhere. Honestly, like my house is trashed. Because look, I'm sitting out here in the sunshine. I want to talk to you. So, my friends, I'm going to go because my mum's here. And she came all the way here just to give me cuddles, which is the best. And I feel very, very blessed to have such an incredible human. She's also got flowers. I can only presume they're for me. Ah, my big love to you. Flowers, look at that. To wrap this beautiful analogy up, if you plant... how am I going to do this? Don't plant garlic and expect oranges. You can't. You cannot expect. Come up around, Mum. Hang on a second. I'm gonna be profound in a minute. Go around this way. Like go up the ramp. And come meet me here. Yeah. Oh, the front door's unlocked and I don't want to go downstairs. Truth, right? You cannot plant garlic and expect to eat oranges. You reap what you sow, my friends. And so get into your garden. Get into your proverbial garden in your mind and do the weeds or not. And be authentic. Maybe my mummy a cuddle. I'm going to give her a real one. I'm off. See ya. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the More Confidence with Luna Gaia podcast. I hope you feel more confident, more self-assured, and ready to go tackle the world's problems and maybe kick ass in some of your dreams. If you haven't already, I would love for you to like and subscribe, follow, and maybe leave a review so that other people know how to find this awesome podcast too. If you're wanting to sink your teeth into something even more juicy, my #1 best-selling book, Perfectly Imperfect, Your Complete Guide to Loving Yourself and Loving Your Body, is now available on all good bookstore sites, both in print, digital, and I narrated it for Audible as well. If you think that coaching or maybe one of my courses is for you, why not head to www.moreconfidence.com.au and get in touch and see if we can talk. And of course, you can find me all across the social medias. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, which is where you're probably listening now, or maybe even here on the podcast platform. Sending you big love and wishing you a beautiful day.